Our speaker this evening really needs very little introduction to a group of motorsport enthusiasts. World champion navigator, founder and still chairman of Prodrive, many successes, Formula One team principal and chairman of Motorsport UK. Big hand please for David Richards.
I've been very well looked after by Harry here already. I've got Lemsip with brandy in it to keep my sort of cold away. I've got a pint of beer tucked behind here, so we're in for an interesting evening. I was going to talk to you about Prodrive and all that's gone on at Prodrive and over the years. But I thought I'd probably better start right back at the very beginning to put things into perspective. And I come from North Wales, a little farm in North Wales, and the first car, rather unlikely car, my mother's Ford Zodiac for doing road rallies in. And my brother and I used to borrow her car on a Saturday evening, tell her we're going down to the youth club. He was only 16. We'd disconnect the speedometer and off we go and do road rallies around North Wales. And the car didn't survive very long, but we went on to other things. And we used to go and watch the RAC rally go past when I've got three younger brothers, and we used to watch it go past it through Clocainog Forest. We'd wait till the very last car went through, hours and hours and hours. And the rallies sort of in those days looked a bit like this, in black and white, and you get an idea. We haven't got the sound to this at the moment. I don't know if we've got some sound somewhere. An expert can give us some sound backtrack on this. It does have some sound, but that's North Wales and the RAC rally going through North Wales, and sort of about the time I would have been sitting on the side of the road watching it, and it was fairly sedate stuff in those days, but I'm sure it didn't feel like that if you were in a Cooper S or something of that nature. For my part, I went on to do a lot of road rallying in North Wales. Road rallying was the thing of the day there. And notice I'm wearing a jacket and tie to do. We thought, this pal of mine, who's Gwyn, we won this event actually, I think, and we thought it would be good fun just to go out in a jacket and tie, just show the lads who sort of, how we go about road rallying and dress properly. I was studying my articles as a chartered accountant at the time. I had to do 5 years of articles. I wanted to be an engineer at school, but I wasn't sort of particularly academic. So my father said the only thing for you is to become an accountant. And so there we go, off I went. I did my articles, but I was doing road rallying all the time, and I got invited to do other events. And my Part 2 exam, you do intermediate, then Part 1 and Part 2. My Part 2 exam was coming up on a Monday near the end of my 5 years, and I got invited to do the Welsh Rally. Now, if you come from North Wales and you're invited to do the Welsh Rally in a competitive car, doesn't matter what exams you've got on a Monday morning, you're going to go and do it. So I went on this event, and I think we finished about 8th or something like that, but we were, it went through the night, and it was sort of, you were completely knackered by the end of it all. It was a pretty long event. And so by Monday morning, I went to the exam and fell asleep in the first part of the exam. You can imagine what the results were like as a consequence of that. I thought I got away with it. I wasn't too concerned until the local newspaper read an article, "Local boy makes good," and Welsh Rally, and my father read it. And that was pretty well the end of my accountancy career. But by that time, I decided I really wanted to get into rallying, and the only way to do it was to raise some money somehow and sort of try and find some sponsorship. So I used to go around meeting lots of people for sponsorship, doing presentations, all the rest of it. And my now wife, who's my long-suffering wife, who's sort of my girlfriend at the time, her family had a flat in London. I used to go down and stay in the flat in London and get up before anybody else in the morning, get out and I was sort of ringing up everybody and sort of trying to raise money for sponsorship. And it was before the days of mobile phones. And well, that was my first office. I used to park my Mini outside the door, prop the door open, and I used to give everyone this number and say, "This is my London office number if you care to call me. I'm sure I can help you." And so, but I went on and I met a young Finn who came over to Wales, not speaking much English at all. He was, in fact, he spoke no English. I don't know how. He ended up coming and staying at our house after the Welsh Rally, and he lived in the time in a very small village in the eastern part of Finland, very similar background to myself, in a small farming area. And we just got on really well. And despite the fact he didn't speak English, I certainly didn't speak Finnish. And we went on and did a few rallies together. We did the Donegal Rally, we did the Scottish Rally. In fact, the Scottish Rally, he won Man of the Rally Award and a gallon of scotch, which was sort of... We never know where it went to. It went back to Tupovara in Finland, got put in a cupboard somewhere and then disappeared. But... and then Ari went off to Ford, and I sort of went my way on to doing other events with various other drivers. And Tony Pond, who, as many of you might remember, he was the driver of the day then, and I ended up as his co-driver. That's us doing Buchels Spa in the snow without studs in a Lancia Stratos. You can imagine what that's like in sheet ice. That was pretty hairy, I tell you. But we did the RAC rally together, and we finished, I think, fourth on the RAC rally in the Opel Kadett, and we got on very well together. And so after that, Tony sort of said, come on, we need to go onto the Leyland team. But meanwhile, I was sort of getting a bit nervous how on earth I was going to make a living at this. So because we weren't being paid at that stage. We were just trying to raise money to go rallying. I used to go and speak to sponsors in London, and I went to Rothmans, the cigarette company, one day, and they had a big office in Baker Street. I went in, I had my lovely presentation. I spoke to the people there, and I got the usual reception. They were very polite, and they basically, at the end of the day, they said, look, don't call us, we'll call you. And I left, and I went home to North Wales, and I thought, oh, well, that's probably the last I hear of them. And the telephone went, and I remember very clearly the day, because my girlfriend at the time, she and I stood at home wondering what the hell we're going to do. She'd just finished college, I just wondering what I was going to do next. And the phone went, and it was the person from Rothmans. And they said, look, you remember the presentation last week? We rather took to you. We thought you could help us do something. Could you organise a rally for us? I said, yeah, I could organise a rally. I was hoping you were going to sponsor me, but never mind. You want to organise a rally? Yeah, where? I said, it's actually in the Middle East. It's in Kuwait, which I'd never heard of at the time. I had to look it up. And they said, but you'll have to go out there quite quickly because the rally's in 10 days' time. I said, look, you can't organise these things in 10 days. You've got to sort of, there's a bit of planning. Oh, don't worry. It's all been planned for you. Everything's been done. All the groundwork's been done. You just turn up and you just take charge. I said, okay, well, who am I working with? What's going on there? And they said, that's the problem. The guy who was organising has just been shot. And you've got his job. And so I went out and organised the very first rally in Kuwait. It was the first event in the Middle East. It went on, it was sort of quite amusing. It was lots of interesting cars entered and lots of locals. And I went on afterwards to organise a whole range of rallies in the Middle East. There was sort of from Qatar to Bahrain to United Arab Emirates, Oman. And as a result, I made lots and lots of friends in the Middle East. And I'll come back to that a little later because they all came around in a big circle later on. Meanwhile, Tony said, we've got the contract with Leyland. We're going to go to Leyland. And they've got this fantastic new car, this TR7 we're going to drive. Okay, that sounds like it's going to be good. We're going to do the British Championship, and then we'll go on and do other great things with this car. And so we turned up at Abingdon. John Davenport was running the place at the time. We turned up, and he sat us down. He said, the car's a bit late. The car won't be ready for another few months, but we've got another job for you. The marketing department had been doing a bit of research, and a lot of our customers, we found out, for Triumphs, Triumph 2.5s, they're Caravan Club members. And they are part of the Caravan Club, and they have a big event coming up. It's the Caravan Rally, and we would like you to take part in this and try and win it for us. So from this great ambition of driving a TR7, we end up with a Caravan behind a Triumph. And it was quite an interesting... Roger Clark was in, his brother Stan, Timo Mäkinen was driving a car. All the car companies decided this was a great thing to do. And most caravans ended up like matchwood after they got through Wales. We did a night rally through Wales. The caravans were all over the place. It became just a bit of a joke. We got to Silverstone, and actually, I now remember this now. There was a guy at the start, and we walked along the line of other competitors, and a chap and his wife in a Morris Oxford, and he had a flat cap on, and they were from Yorkshire. And Tony looked and said, "This is the opposition. This is just a joke." And when we got to Silverstone, we went through the forest just outside Silverstone, and just about the last corner, we swiped a pile of logs on the side of the road. Didn't think much of it. It didn't seem to be too bad damage or anything like that. And we were leading by half an hour anyway. So we get to Silverstone, and we're lined up in the line, and there's the guy from Yorkshire with a flat cap on and his wife, and they're asking us if we want to have a cup of tea in their caravan. And they're 30 minutes behind us. Anyway, the scrutineers come along and said, "Oh, look at that damage on that caravan. That's a 30-minute penalty for that." So we were now on equal points with a man with a flat cap and his wife from Yorkshire. And would you believe they beat us? And we never lived it down when we got back to Abingdon after that. We did a few races in these caravans, and this is just, I'm thinking of reintroducing this, for Motorsport UK. I think it could catch on. It's got really drama about it. So if anyone wants to write the regulations for that, we'll look at that and sort of see how many entries we get for it next year. We did go on to get the TR7s, though. Unfortunately, with a small engine, it wasn't the success we'd hoped it would be. But it was Tony was a great driver, and he was sorely missed. Actually, he was the best driver of his day. We were invited to join the Fiat team, in fact, but he wouldn't drive the left-hand drive car for the World Championship. He said, "No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay in a car I know." And so I went on after that to join Billy Coleman at that time. We did the European Championship in a Lancia Stratus, which was quite dramatic. Billy was a very interesting Irish character. He was, I could sit here all night and tell you stories about him. There was so many occasions. So you'd lose him. We did one practice drop, and then we landed on top of our teammate in the next event. That didn't go down very well. I remember we'd had a few accidents at this stage already, and the cars had been quite badly damaged. And this went off the road here. When we finally came to a halt, Ari is staring in the rearview mirror, and he said, "I said, he's just fixated on the rearview mirror." He said, "It's a bad one. It's a bad one. The bonnet's in the back of the car," and it was Hanu's. But that year we did go on finally to win our first World Championship event in Acropolis. We were sort of, would you believe that event? It was a very long event. I think it's 5 days or something like that. We had 19 punches and still won the event. So it's we went on and we won it again the following year. And Finland, which was obviously it was really our favourite event in many ways, but we'd never won it. We'd finished second twice in 79 and 80. And we said, "Look, we've got to work out why we can't beat Marco Allen, who'd beaten us both the previous years." And we worked it out. He was always in the first night, the first 4 or 5 stages. He just went like a rocket on those, and we were left behind, and we never caught up again. So we said, "Right, this time we're going to go flat out from the word go and see what happens." And I'd say that's the most frightening 4 stages of my entire life. We did actually, by the 4th stage, Marco had rolled, and we went on to win it quite easily as a result of that. There was one particular occasion. He used to practice for 3 weeks at a time, and we'd practice night after night after night. And there was one particular place, very fast place, and there was a jump by a milk churn stand on the left side of the road, and you came down. Then after that was a 90-degree left and a lake straight in front of you. And Ari said, "You know what? I think we could take that flat." And so we said, "Well, let's just practice it a couple of times and just see if we can take it flat." We never quite took it flat in practice. He said, "Don't worry. On the day, we will be just, the adrenaline will get us. We'll take it flat. Don't you worry." And it was in the dark as well. So what we didn't realize was that the rally car, the lighting stalk, had been fitted the wrong way round. So when we landed after the jump, the lighting stalk went down, and all the lights went out. And it was pitch black, and we're now heading for a lake, a 90-degree corner of a lake. I still to this day don't know how we got around it. But the final round of the championship that year was Bandama, Ivory Coast. We hit a lorry on the first day, and we drove that car like that for the rest of the event. We were running 24 hours behind the leading car, Timo Salonen. We'd be arriving at hotels with the rest halts, and they were leaving. And we just had to turn around and go back again. And it was, we finished last, but there were only 9 finishers. And we scored a point, a World Championship point. We always thought it could be quite an important one. It turned out not to be, but you never know in these situations. So it's, and then we got to the final round in the UK, and it was in my North Wales, Chester, up in that area. So it's, for me, it was a very special event.
Ari's been driving particularly well. Are you going to be able to sort of slow him down on this to keep him...
Yes, he's got the right frame of mind as we start now. He knows what the task is in hand, and there's no question about having to slow him down at all.
Well, it will be, I should say, slightly slower than usual. And see how the Guy and the others are doing, and see after first day whether we are in top 10 or not, and drive accordingly.
Next away, Ari Vatanen and David Richards in the Rothmans Escort, aiming for the World Drivers' Championship. Second through Donington Park is Vatanen's Escort. True to his word, the normally spectacular Finn is well in control. Vatanen said he was going to take things cautiously, but no one expected this cautiously, and he too is not yet in the top 10. Nonetheless, he tackles Knowsley Safari Park in fine style. Barring disaster to the Quattro, there's nothing that second-place Vatanen can do about the lead. But with the French girl only just over a minute behind him, he can't afford to slacken his pace. Wednesday morning in Llandudno, after a cold and snowy night in Wales. Vatanen's kept his second place without too much drama, but others have not been so lucky, and the icy conditions have taken their toll.
Snow at the last stage is incredible.
Come on, Aaron, let's go.
I was wondering about it actually for Torquino, but I think it's much lower.
Torquino with Mastino maybe on top.
What have the stages been like, Ari?
Nasty, hairy, very slippery and muddy and not so enjoyable. But I'm happy that they are now over.
As Ari Vatanen completes the final stage, he realises he's the new World Rally Champion.
I feel, very, very pleased, very satisfied, happy, and of course it has been a really long year with a lot of hard work involved, and not just from my side, but from the whole team, and we have had our ups and downs, and it hasn't always looked so, so optimistic, and but now I'm, obviously I feel, from my point of view, I feel very happy, and so I feel for the whole team, their efforts, haven't gone down the drains.
So it was a long year, and the extraordinary thing was that when my 3 brothers and I we used to watch the rally in Clocanog Forest, we walked into the first corner we got to. It was a 90-degree left-hand corner, and we used to sit on this corner watching the cars go through. That turned out to be the very last corner of that World Championship for me. And at the end of that event, I got out of the car and said, I've had enough. I've got 2 young children, and I'm going to set up my own team. And then Rothmans came to the rescue and said, we'll support you and we'll help fund the team. I managed to persuade Henry Toivonen to join me. At the time, Henry was the up-and-coming star of that era. Unfortunately, when he moved to Lancia 2 years later, he got killed in a crash in Corsica, which was very, very sad, and still remember that to this day. But he won Madeira, he won other European Championship rounds, and we finished second in the European Championship in our first year with the team. But meanwhile, out in the Middle East, I'd met this young Arab driver, Said Al-Hajri, who I just took a great liking to. He's a really great character, and he turned out to be a real star. We went on to win the Middle East Championship with him a number of times, and we went to Acropolis, and that's how small the team was in those days. That was a tiny little team, and he went to finish 4th on the Acropolis World Championship round, which in a Porsche was pretty impressive. And it was the early days of when Porsche were looking at doing Dakar Rally, and so they raised the four-wheel drive car, and we took that to Pharaoh's Rally. In fact, we won the first event. The Jackie X was in the factory car. We had our own car that we'd built in Silverstone, and we went on to win Pharaoh's Rally that was 85 with that car. Some interesting characters we met on the way. So and that was our workshop in those days. That's how small and tiny it was. It was just the back end of Silverstone. Our neighbour was Eddie Jordan. Used to sort of share a cup of tea with him on a regular basis, and all the cars crammed into it. You just can't believe when you look at it now how we survived. But we moved then to Banbury, and that's where we set up back in 87, and that was our site alongside the motorway. Anyone who goes up the M40, you'll have always seen our white buildings on the left-hand side, and the new building is about a mile south of there now. When we moved to Banbury, we were still obviously doing rallying, but we had Mr. Frank Sittner come and knock on the door and said, you know, we think you might be quite good at running a BMW in racing. So we thought, can't be too difficult. Let's build a racing car. And see Dick sitting here in the front row. He can tell us more about that. But so Frank came along, and we started doing touring car racing with Frank in the BMW. And meanwhile, rallying was still in our blood. That's where we really wanted to do well. We won our first World Championship win was in Corsica with the BMW M3 back in 87, and that was a memorable event for us. Just probably the last really, I don't know if there was another two-wheel drive car won after that event or not. Since then, it's all four-wheel drive. We knew we had to go to four-wheel drive at that point. We knew we couldn't compete in the World Championship without a four-wheel drive car. And Mr. Kuze, a lovely Japanese man, came knocking on the door to me one day, and he said, we've been watching what you've been doing in other things. Would you be interested in running Subarus for us in the World Championship? Now, that was a Subaru in those days. And I must admit, we were a bit suspicious. And especially when I told the guys that they had to change their BMW company cars for Subarus. But, you know, a few years later, the importer for Subaru in the UK told me, this is when we won the World Championship a few years later, he said to me, you know what, when I first met you, we were selling pickup trucks to pig farmers. And now we're selling sports cars to sort of petrol heads. So we started off on the Acropolis Rally, and Marco Alen was the driver. He was one of the top drivers of the era. So he's very, very quick, but the car was still a little fragile in the early stages. But that was the team. That was the scale of our team in those days. And I look back, and still a number of those people still work at Prodrive, and many of them come back and say hello regularly. You turn up on a mountainside, and the likes of Toto, Ford, they'd have like armies of people. They'd take 120, 140 people to an event. We only employed 50 people, and that included the receptionist, and we couldn't take her. So, but that was what a service park would have looked like in those days, of just turning up and But we said, we can't win like this. How the hell are we going to beat these guys? They've got more money than us. They've got more people than us. They've got more resources than us. We've got to think differently. So we said, well, look, I tell you what, if we've got to get from A to B quickly, and they'd lay these cars out and the trucks and everything like an army route march, and they'd be positioned everywhere. So they'd have tyres, they'd have mechanics, they'd have everything all over the country. We couldn't do that. Well, we could if we had helicopters. So I learned to fly a helicopter, and the bloke who taught me to fly the helicopter, we said, right, we get 2 helicopters, we take them to the rallies now to Greece, and that's what we did. We just put most of the people in helicopters, we put our engineers in helicopters, and we leapfrog from place to place to place to place. And I remember one day we calculated on, we'd landed at, I think it was 32 places in a day, just leapfrogging. And we'd land everywhere, ludicrous. Well, there you go. We're on top of a garage roof there. And, you know, we didn't ask the garage owner's permission. We just landed there. And we'd land on roundabouts in roads. We'd land on just in people's gardens, all sorts of places. I remember one particular occasion in Corsica. We go in Mike, the other pilot, he said, I can't see where the hell we're going to land here, David. It's all sort of looks very difficult. So we'll go on the harbour wall. Let's just go down the harbour. That looks like a good place. It looks a bit dusty to me. It's sort of so. Well, you go in first and you just clear the dust. So he went in first. Dust clouds everywhere. I followed him. I landed. Dust clouds everywhere. And as the dust settled, we're just literally by the harbour wall. The dust clouds settled down and just you can start to see things. And a chap comes from behind the harbour wall holding a pot of varnish and a paintbrush. So, but we went on and we built the team up. That was sort of what the team looked like in '94. We still had sort of Rothmans supporting us now in the guise of 555. And back in the UK, we had a McRae senior, Jimmy, joined us. We got a Metro 6R4 sorry, how's that got out of order? Oh, no, I know. I'm going to tell you about Colin McRae. That's right. So now, going back, we'd obviously met Jimmy years before the Subaru days. We'd had Jimmy in one of our cars in a 6R4 there, and he became very good friends with us, and we all got on very well. And then one day when he sort of said I watched his son, Colin, he'd been with us, he'd been helping out, he'd actually been servicing with Marco in the Subarus, and he'd been let down by Ford, who he thought were going to sponsor him to do a British Championship series. And his father said, well, he's without a drive, and can we raise some money to put him in one of your cars? And so somehow we scraped the cash together, and Colin came and joined us. And well, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride with Colin, as you can imagine. He was either winning or he's in a ditch somewhere upside down. And the one event I remember most of all, we were going to Finland. And I said to Colin, look, come and see me in my office. I need to have a word with you about this. We're going to send you to Finland. We're going to send you over there just to learn the roads. We want you to, it's a very difficult event. You're not going to know this, learn it overnight. So you need to go there a few times to get on the pace with the locals. And so we're investing in you now. And I'd like you to go over there, take it sensibly, learn your way around, and then, we'll send you next year and you'll get better. And I think the third year you should be on the pace.
It's a pretty challenging event for any young driver to go to. And so I'd had a talk to him in the rally before. I said, now look here, this is about getting experience, being calm. They're very difficult roads. You've got to get the speed there. But use this year just to get some experience. So I was pretty annoyed to find out when I arrived in Helsinki or in Jyväskylä, before the start of the event, he'd already rolled the car, testing it.
Even when they pushed it into scrutineering, they couldn't push on the body panels because the paint was still wet. So they got it all straightened out. We started the rally, and then on the first day of the rally, we had a fairly major accident, probably one of the biggest ones I've had, and got away with it. So we rolled about 7 times in through all the tree stumps, and ended up on its wheels. And you would normally just have got out because you would have said the car was destroyed.
The Subaru Legacy was fantastic. It didn't actually get too badly damaged, although there wasn't much straight. It still drove very well, and we hadn't damaged the engine or anything. And we just kept pushing until the inevitable happened, and we went straight off and through some trees and rolled it again. And by that time, I think even David Richards was seeing the funny side of it.
I was getting more and more frustrated, more and more annoyed, because this just wasn't in the plan. But I suppose by the third day, I was there with a sledgehammer knocking out the dents and being part of the team. That was the sort of way and the character of Colin, the way that he actually got everybody around him to support him, whatever the situation.
He brought the car back and it looked awful, but he still kept driving very good times, and people in Finland loved him, in that respect.
I do remember at the finish, the local fans applauded Colin more than the winner, Didier Oriol, on that occasion.
I was watching the rally that time, and he definitely stayed in my mind after that. It was really, everybody loved him after that rally.
He was very faithful to his reputation, which already at that time was a driver who goes incredibly fast and then goes off the road. and then comes back if he comes back, and that he actually survived those accidents on the 1,000 lakes and actually came back. I mean, it defies the belief, but that was his reputation.
A remarkable talent that the world tragically lost too soon. 12 years later, at the age of just 39, Colin McRae died.
I can remember, I don't want to talk about it.
I have to say that for me was my best friend in the World Rally Championship, and I want to say that very, very, very often I remember him.
So that was Colin, and what a character he was. So we were so lucky to be able to have worked with him. But we're back in touring car racing, back in England. We have a period with the Italians. I don't know why, I'd got grown a great affinity with the Italians through Lancia, and they came back when they came to England. They said, we'd like to work with you with the Alfa Romeo program. We went on to run Hondas as well for a period of time, and then finally winning the championship with the Mondeos, which was a great season in 2000. That was the time when they had proper budgets in those days, Dick. It was really serious money, wasn't it? Meanwhile, I guess I was thinking to myself, you know what? Formula One, if you haven't run a Formula One team, you haven't really been in motorsport. And so I'd been skirting around various opportunities and seeing what was around. And I then got invited to run the Benetton team for the Benettons. A very strange set of circumstances. I get a call from Bernie, and he says, David, the Benettons are a bit fed up with Flavio because he's had his hand in the till once too often, and it's time for a change. Would you go down there and meet them? And so I ended up sort of running the team, and my challenge. I was supposed to be mentoring Rocco, the son, who was sort of 25 years old. He was sent to England, and his father said to me, right, you look after Rocco and train him. He's going to be the future of the Benetton family. He's going to run the team in the future. I could never get him out of bed. He was in nightclubs all night. I'd try and find him the next day. It was just a hopeless cause. And I'd ring his brother up, and I'd ring his father. I'd say, I don't know where the hell's the guy's gone. He's just disappeared. And so that relationship lasted a year, and it was a good learning year, because I learned a lot during that year for what came a little later. Meanwhile, at the rallying side, Richard Burns went on to win the World Rally Championships for us again in 2001, another blue and yellow car, Rothman's car, or 555 car with Subaru, and Petter Solberg again in 2003. Both of them great characters, and unfortunately Richard no longer with us, but Petter very much so, and his son following in his footsteps now. Then I got this call, a bit like that very original call. I got that telephone call when I was with my girlfriend at the time, and from Rothmans. And this time it was the management of Lucky Strike, and it's the same company, and they said, look, we've got a problem in our Formula One team where it's a brand new team. We haven't scored a single point. We're last in the championship. Would you like to come and sort it out? And so that was a bit of a challenge, but I like challenges. And so I joined the team to run it. Took a group of people with me from Prodrive as well this time, rather than just being on my own as I was at Benetton. I went and signed Jenson Button. And I'd always thought you get a British driver and a British team, it just gels people together. I'd learnt that with McRae and with Burns, and that's what happened. It did help us enormously. And the challenge that I was set by BAT in those days was, we've got 3 challenges for you. The first one is, we really would like to control the costs. The costs have just got out of control. We need to get the budget under control. We would love to see some points on the board and get some results. And we've got to sell the team, because cigarette advertising is going to be banned shortly. So we went on to build the team up over the next 3 years, and we had a great run. And we Eventually finished second in the championship in 2004, second to Ferrari, and we sold the team to Honda, and so job done. It's a bit unfinished business for me, really, but that was the contract, that was what the deal was, and so everyone asks you, do I look back with any regret on that? Yeah, I would have loved to have carried on and done something more, but sometimes you have to accept these things, and that was the contract. Circuit racing, however, had become more interesting for us, and we decided that sports car racing was where we really belonged. And a friend of ours who'd had a Subaru for a number of years doing rallying went off and bought a Ferrari. He said, I'm going to do sports car racing, I want to go to Le Mans. And he came back with a car after the end of the season. He said, look, this car's terrible. It just handles badly, it doesn't look right. Can you sort it out for me? And we looked at the car and said, we'd rather start again if you don't mind, and we'll go and buy an old 550 Ferrari, a second-hand one in London somewhere, and we'll build you a race car. And we built the race car, and that's a 2003 car. They won GT category at Le Mans with it there, very successfully. And the cars now, I think we built 11 of them at the time. I remember Monty Zemolo telling me, we just cannot have Ferraris being built in Banbury. And I wanted to get I wanted official chassis plates on the cars. And I went to see, Jean Todt had agreed it with me, and he said, yeah, I think we can do that. Monty Zemolo blocked it. He said, no chance of Ferrari's ever going to be built in Banbury, and that was that. But so the answer was another manufacturer, and that was going to be Aston Martin. Now, I'd been an Aston Martin fan since I was a small boy. I used to go knock on the door of Aston Martin every year. I'd go and knock on the door, look, you should go motor racing, and we should do it for you. We're only down the road in Banbury. We're the team you need. And every time they said, we haven't got any money, we haven't got a penny, come back next year. So I kept going back, and the DB9 came out, and we eventually this year, to my great amazement, they said, you know what, we should do this. And we made an agreement, that's Uli Betts and myself, just as we'd signed the agreement back in 2004. And we built the DBR9s, and we went to Sebring. We won at our first event in Sebring in America, which was quite extraordinary. And that set the tone for the program, which we've been running Aston Martin GT program now for 21 years, and we've had our ups and downs, but we've had some great moments. That was the LMP1 car, which is a Lola chassis with an extraordinary V12 in the back of it, and you hear that car down Le Mans Straight, and it's quite extraordinary. The team went on to win in different guises with different drivers, winning the World Endurance Championship title. And but you know what? There is one event that sticks in my mind, and it's a race that some people say, what is the one race you remember? And the last lap of this race at Le Mans is probably the one I remember most.
This is turning out for GT. 0.4 now, and he's having a look. He's hurrying. The lights will start flashing before you know it. They're going to try every trick in the book. I have a chance here. Big one on. There's a P2 car in the way, I believe. Now, is he going to use the P2 car? He knows it's coming by. Is he going to dip out behind him? Oh, no time. Surely that was the intention. Can't do it. Ben's back. Right, being able to wave the flag. He went a bit wide there. Oh, he's got him out there. Big braking. But he's gone by. He's outbraked. It's on. Contact as well. Oh, and celebration turns to commiseration. It's not over.
Oh, there. Now, what happened there? Something in the background. It wasn't just...
Whoa, big moment there. We saw smoke and we saw a Corvette on its own, but it's still alive. Let's have a look at this one. Big braking straight on.
Yeah. That's cost him.
Now this is pressure personified on all of these drivers right now. You cannot even begin to imagine. There's virtually nothing between them, and the Aston hasn't finished. He's got backup as well. He's got a wingman looking after him, and here they come with inside of the grandstands as well. This is absolutely phenomenal. It is far from over, this race.
Yeah, they've got one more lap to do after this, and can Johnny now just bide his time? He knows where he's quicker now. If he goes over the curve as well.
He's looking much quicker.
absolutely right. The tyres have gone on that Corvette. 3 mistakes in 2 laps, and through goes Nicky T. He's got him. There's your wingman. That's the insurance policy. Oh, and Corvette have been...
Well, Aston Martin are going to bring this one in. Aston Martin are going to bring this home. There we are. We take it at the line. In fact, on the very final lap, the Risers won. They take a roar, and indeed, the wingman played a huge part there as well. It was an insurance...
You know, there are some races you'll never forget, and I still thoroughly enjoy watching that minute of video, even when it comes back again. So, no, we had some great experiences. You know what? Everyone asked me when was my first memory of Le Mans? Well, I told you about my 3 brothers and that Ford Zodiac. We used to go to Spain on holiday. And you had a bench seat in the front of the car, and my little brother, who would be about 3 at the time, and I'd be about 12 or 13, and my other 2 were sitting in the back, and we going down the motorways or whatever it is, and the main roads down through France. And my father says, we're coming to this place called Le Mans, and they have a 24-hour race. And you know what? We're going to go on part of the circuit, the Mulsanne Straight. So we're hanging over the back seat of this Ford Zodiac saying, can you get to 100 miles an hour, Dad? And he said, yeah, I can get to 100 miles an hour. There's my little brother sitting in the middle with no safety belts. And my mother screaming at my father in the front, you are stupid, Jeffrey. This is a silly thing to be. Come on, Dad, get to 100 miles an hour. And that was my first memory of Le Mans. And so I've gone back many years since, and anyone here who's never been to Le Mans, honestly, it's the best race in the world. You've got to go. And we've had other experiences of Le Mans wins and championship wins for a number of years, and we'll be back there again. I spoke to the organisers only today about something. We've got the final round of the championship in Bahrain in 3 weeks' time this year. Unfortunately, we're in about 3rd in the championship at the moment, so not a great year for us this year. But Subaru eventually said that in 2008, rallying had served its purpose for them. We'd been working with them for 18 years, and the regulations have gone a slightly different direction and really didn't suit them any longer. So they stopped the contract. We had to have a bit of a rethink. So we thought, well, we haven't got a manufacturer to start with. Let's start with the regulations, and why don't we design the ultimate rally car? So we take the regulations, and if you design the whole car around the regulations, then whenever we get a car to sort it out, we'll know when we're making compromises, because if we have to make and we'll minimize the compromises. So we started by designing a generic car, and we looked at the engine, we looked at every aspect of the car, and so we spent 6 months, probably more, designing this. And then we went to Mini and went to BMW in Germany and said, you know what, we think we can make your car successful and we can win World Rally Championship events with the Mini. And I think still to this day we're on track to doing that. We had some very good results with the car, but the thing I hadn't realized at the time that within the German organization, BMW was the hero brand and Mini was the sort of the orphan brand in England and wasn't to be taking the limelight. And when BMW wasn't doing particularly well in motor racing and we were sort of doing quite well on the World Rally stage, suddenly the money dried up, and so that program didn't last very long. But you know what? We moved all the parts from that Mini into a Golf, and we won the Chinese championship 3 years running with a Golf, which was really a Mini under the bonnet. We decided Rallycross looked quite good at the time, and we persuaded Renault that we should design a car for them, it was a very advanced car in many respects, the whole layout of the car and the inboard brakes and all sorts of things. And I've never worked out why Rallycross has never really captured the imagination, because when you look at the races...
And he still gets a great start. Liam Doran back a start on the outside, going to try and shut the door on Christopherson. Hold shot, Liam Doran has some age in the gravel trap on the outside, tries to pull it back in across the curves. Christopherson will be all over him. Christopherson in the side. Doran's going to give it to him down the hairpin, and then on the inside though. He's got the inside line. Liam Doran's going to win his inside though. Haken on the handbrake, slides it across the line, ends up out on the gravel trap. Liam Doran's going to try and come across, gets a nudge that might help him turn the car in. Haken backwards in the gravel. He stood back, as they desperately try and set the car up.
Yeah, so Doran is doing a great job here, and this is
fastest lap again, 41.6. Liam goes a 10th faster and takes the checker flag and the fastest time of the session so far.
So, rallycross, I think, is just such an exciting sport, but it's never really, I don't know, you've got Lydden Hill in the UK, but it doesn't seem to have captured the imagination like it does in Scandinavia. And so that program lasted about 3 years. And so if you think back now, we've gone through the whole gambit of nearly every form of motorsport you can think of. And there is one event that I've been repeatedly asked to do, and Ari had asked me to do the Dakar Rally many times with him, and I said no, I just do not like the idea of sleeping in a sleeping bag under the car each night. I'd like to have a shower in the mornings and like to sort of, have a decent bed to sleep in. And he said, no, it's great fun. But eventually we succumbed to Dakar Rally, and the Dakar Rally moved to Saudi Arabia. And back to my Middle East connections again, I was chatting to the Bahrainis one day. I was there at an event there, and they said, we think we might sponsor someone to do the Dakar Rally for us. I said, well, why sponsor someone? Why don't we build our own car? So we went ahead and we designed our own car. I signed Sebastian Loeb to drive it as well. So I've always had this view that, certainly in rallying and most forms of motorsport, just don't compromise on the drivers. Get the very best you can, and everything else will follow from that. So we signed Seb, and we built the car to the new regulations, and it was a pretty spectacular car, the Hunter. And we went on to on the podium. The first year we were 5th, which is the highest anyone's ever done with a new car into Dakar, and then we finished on the podium the next 3 years, and there's Seb and his co-driver on the podium there. That's Seb and the original Hunter, and we'll come on in a minute to what we're up to now. But then someone came up with the wonderful idea of doing an electric series of cross-country and Extreme E. And the great thing about that series was that it's male and female. So there was 4 laps of the circuit, normally about 3 kilometres long, a bit more maybe, 5 kilometres. And 2 laps had to be done by the male driver and 2 laps by the female driver. And I got what I consider the best of the lot. I got Sebastian Loeb and a young Spanish girl, Cristina Gutierrez. And she's gone on to drive for us in Dakar now, and she will be on the podium in Dakar one day, I guarantee you that. But it was an interesting series, electric vehicles, and in fact the next round of that I think will be on next weekend. I think they've sort of resurrected it again. And then we've sort of moved on to, where are we now? We're actually, yes, I then signed up Nasser Al-Attiyah to join us. And Nasser I've known for donkey's years. He's won everything in Dakar. He's won all the Middle East championships. And finally, I persuaded him to come and join our team. And we went on straight away to win last year in Portugal, and that was with the old car, with the Hunter, and we knew already that we were building the Dacia. The whole plan was to build the team up for Dacia, where I'd keep Sebastian Loeb, keep Nasser Al-Attiyah, so the 2 top drivers in the world in that category. Christina as well, I wanted her to stay. And we just signed Lucas Moraes, the Brazilian as well, who's just won in Portugal. So we've got probably the 4 best drivers in the world in that series. And the Dacia was quite a complicated car to build. We built the Hunter on a shoestring. It was really just built by us with a Ford engine in it. We learned a lot from it. But when we came to doing the Dacia, we said, right, we've got free hand to do everything we want. So we put on 48-volt systems onto the car. Everything was electrical. It's all low center of gravity, everything. It's very, very complicated car. I had a friend of mine in from one of the Formula One teams recently looking around the car. He said, this is more complex in many respects than our car is. It's just a very complicated car. And a bit of background to the sort of... Lucas, who joins us at the end of the year. He's currently driving for Toyota, but that's what the team looks like. This year we will take 140 people to Dakar Rally to run the program, and it's quite a serious enterprise. But the car, as I say, is a very complex bit of equipment and quite an exciting project. But meanwhile, our business relies upon not just the factory teams. Our business relies on customer business behind it. So the Aston Martin program we will build this year, we will build, I think, 35, 37 GT4 cars. We'll build about 18 GT3 cars. They'll be sold all over the world. We'll have engineers. We've got 22 engineers that only look after our customers and go out around the world looking after them, and the spare parts support for it. So I wanted to do the same thing with Dakar. But these cars are unaffordable. They're just ridiculous. And you can't maintain them without a team of people. So we looked at the production side, and anyone knows sort of Group N rallying or sort of even GT4 in sports car. We said, well, let's build a car and the regulations around that. And we persuaded the organisers and the FIA to do a new set of regulations that would allow a sort of production car to be reliable and competitive. And we persuaded then Land Rover to come along with us, and we're now running the Defender. We're doing 3 cars for Defender in January, which are a production car. They call it production. It's quite a special car, actually. It's not when I look around the car and look at the cost of it, it's not very production, I tell you. But here's a bit of background to that's the Defender production car. It's quite a big, and the same philosophy. I've got Peter Hansel, 14 times winner of Dakar, driving it. He sort of still thinks he can sort of. I've got a small bet that he will be in the top 20 this year, and I think it's quite possible with that car as well. We do all sorts of strange things as well. We get asked to do odd things, and there's one project which unfortunately I've been working on this morning, which I can't tell you about yet, but you'll find out later this year, which is going to be an extraordinary land speed record we're going to do next year. But meanwhile, we had a Chinese car manufacturer come to us and say, we want to beat the lap record around Nürburgring. And so we sort of looked at the car. It's an electric car, and said, we want to take this car and we want to get under the Porsche times and under everyone else's times. And so this is what we did with it. And we got down to a 6:22, which around Nürburgring is quite extraordinary. And third fastest time ever around Nürburgring with an electric car. So that was quite extraordinary. So it brings us really full circle round to where we are today and what we're doing today. And so I'll close this section now with just a sort of a video of what we are today and what we do today, and then I'll throw the floor open to questions to you. Quick run through of a few just bits and pieces we're up to. We've talked about all the motor racing stories of the past, and the thing that is important to me is that we have a culture of really make it happen. We can do anything, sort of a competitive spirit throughout the whole organisation, whatever we take. I always say to my engineering team, who are they're working on car programs and doing different things, and you think, well, they never changed the start time of a race for me because we've been late. And yet they think that they can push the dates back as sort of if they're late on production of a car or a component or something. So we have that philosophy running through the organisation, that competitive philosophy that says we'll do whatever it takes. Today we've got sort of we get involved in a whole range of programs, and from the structure now is split up to 5 different companies. I'm not going to dwell on all the details there. And the organisation, we've got sort of the factory alongside the M40. If you're ever passing there, it's split into 3 units, 125,000 square feet of people there. About 500 people work in the property there. We do an awful lot of training, a lot of work with local schools, local universities, and that's an important part of our philosophy as well, to sort of develop from within, always promote from within, always recruit from the local area if we can, and everyone jokes with me about it because we're the best training ground for the Formula One teams around us, and I do quite a few of the exit interviews myself because a lot of young graduate engineers come in. They normally stay with us for 5 years, and I sort of, when they're going to leave, I sort of say, come and have a cup of coffee with me. They come up to my office, a bit of trepidation. What on earth are they going to talk about? I sit them down and say, look, you've had great fun with us, and we'd like to thank you for all you've done for us. But when you go to that Formula One team that you're going to, and after the next 3 years and you've not moved off the front left-hand wheel, then perhaps you'd like to think about coming back to us and, come and have a chat with me again. And so many of them do, I can tell you. We get involved in all sorts of different projects. There's the electric truck we did there. We're doing all the active aero systems for the current Valhalla for Aston Martin at the moment. And that's a sort of electric last mile delivery system, which is a pallet loading one, which is quite unique as well. Doing projects for the military and again, sort of short runs of sort of working with JLR and Jaguar Land Rover. But we worked with all sorts of people over the years in different programs. And today we're starting to move outside our realms. Some of you might have seen the P25 we did, which is a recreation of a car we did 25 years ago, which has got great acclaim based on a Subaru. We're looking at another project now, which will sort of hark back to our past. We have a simulator which we've developed there, and then a little lightweight bike. We've got an electric version of it as well, 6.9 kilos, folding bicycle. So we have an electric harnessing business up in Telford, up in the Midlands, and doing a lot of work for the Formula One teams there and various other projects. And so it's a very eclectic organisation these days. It's moved on from those very early days when we just had one product, and we go sort of on that Acropolis rally where you saw about 20 of us, and we all went off to Greece, and we wondered, how this would all end up. And 40 years later, well, that's how it has ended up. And so there we go. That's a brief story of sort of, how someone who failed all his exams at school and was a very poor accountant somehow made good at the end of it all. And I'm going to throw it open to the floor now and sort of...
Thank you, David. That was absolutely fantastic. Are we allowed to know who drove the electric car around the Nürburgring? Who was that?
Yes, it was Dave... what's his surname? David... I'm going to say it's Pickford. David Pickford, is it?
Oh, I know David Pickford, yes. I have come across him, actually, yeah. Nürburgring expert, obviously.
He is a Nürburgring expert.
Recruited the right man. That was absolutely fantastic, David. Brilliant presentation. We've got Hamir over on this side here with the microphone. Any questions for David? Got one here on the front row from our photographer, Gareth.
David, we see, obviously, spectacular photographs of the Dakar Rally, of people going over sand dunes and everything. I just wonder, how do you know you're going in the right direction?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. And funny enough, we've got a training program. We're doing as much training for the navigators as we do for the drivers. They work, to be honest with you, I'm getting this third hand because I haven't done it myself, but they get... there are not many tracks out there, and sometimes the tracks are just blown away completely. So you're working on magnetic headings sometimes, and you're working on geographical features, and they have like a GPS point that triggers a beacon. So when you go over the beacon point, you can you trigger it and you go on to the next one, like a passage control. And you might be, some of the beacons are 50-metre surround, so you've got to be within 50 metres of it. And so you've seen some films probably of people going round and round in circles trying to sort of find these places in the middle of nowhere. I take my hats off to the navigators because I honestly think they deserve as much credit as the drivers do in those situations. It's not easy at all. Big pressure. And you're going at it for a long period. The temperatures inside the cars, we run air conditioning. We've now got double air conditioning in the new car for this year. But the car in testing, we're doing testing in Morocco this summer, and the air conditioning broke. And the temperature in the car was nearly 40 degrees, 38 degrees. And the drivers, I think it was Sebastian, came out the car and said, I can't drive this anymore, I finished. Christina said, I'll have a go. And Christina drove for another 3 hours, and it was up at 38 degrees most of the time. And they're pretty fit, these drivers, I tell you.
Okay, another question here. Got one in the front row from John.
Dave, thank you. That was a brilliant talk. I was there in Chester in 1981.
You're as old as I am.
Yeah, exactly. I've followed you all that way. I'm just looking forward now, and I'm wondering, I'm worried about Jaguar now. Are you?
Jaguar, well, Jaguar's going in a very different direction. They're going all electric. I think the whole car industry is in a bit of a quandary at the moment of where they're going to go to and what they should be doing. I hope that with motorsport we can lead the way with technology. And I think part of the problem we've got today, over the last 20 years, because of the demands for television and entertainment, we have ended up with motorsport very, what's the word? We've neutralized it. We've made everything the same. We've tried to get common performance, because it makes great TV. You don't want TV where one car's disappearing off into the distance. But as a result of that, we haven't allowed motorsport to develop the technologies it was renowned for 50 years ago. And that's what the basis of it always was. We were pioneering new technologies all the way. And I've been discussing this with Motorsport UK and discussing with the technical people there, how can we start to reintroduce technology into the sport again, to pioneer new technologies for people. Audi, would you have ever bought a four-wheel drive car until you saw the Audi Quattro? What about the performance of the diesel Audis when they went to Le Mans, and the disc brakes and all sorts of other technologies that come through motorsport? So going back to Jaguar, they're going to focus on their Formula E program. They're going to look at other electric race programs. I think from what I can see in talking to them there, motorsport is very much in the blood, and I hope they're going to use motorsport more effectively in the future.
Thanks, David. That was fantastic, listening to your summary of life in your world. Fantastic. I've done a bit of driving over the years. I've never done any co-driving, and I often wonder what motivates somebody to be a co-driver, and do you ever feel frightened by the whole thing? I mean, it looks horrific as a co-driver.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think that the real reason for being a co-driver is when you realise you can't be as good as the driver. And I had a little frog-eyed Sprite when I started driving, and I stuck it through the hedge and rolled it a couple of times, and I thought, I can't afford to do it much longer, and I'm obviously not going to be as good as some of the other guys out here. I thought, if I really want to do well, I'm perhaps better at sticking on the other side and learning how to do this. But you're right. I think I stopped when it was the right time. Poor old Ari, he carried on for a number of years later, but he had 2 years later, he had the most horrendous accident in Argentina. They practiced this road, and quite very fast, high speed. But the night before the rally went through, there was a heavy rainstorm, and it washed a gully away. And they hit this gully very heavily. The car went end over end. And what actually happened, the seat broke in the car. The seat cracked in half. And so he broke his back, he broke his legs, he broke his, everything. And they basically took him to hospital and said, that's it. And somehow he was so fit. They got him back, and they got him recovered. They got him back to Paris eventually. And they sort of quietly bolted him together. He's still full of metal today. But the real drama was the psychological problems. He'd been so injured, and he had blood transfusions and things, and he believed, and it was in, I can't remember what year it would be in now, he believed he'd got AIDS as a result of the blood transfusion. He just psychologically, and he thought everyone around him was telling him lies. His wife wasn't telling him the truth. I used to spend a lot of time with him. I used to go and see him. And it was a horrible experience to sort of see somebody in such a trauma there. And eventually came out of it. One day he rings me up and says, it's all over. The clouds have lifted. I'm back. And he went on to win Dakar Rally the following year as well. He's just quite extraordinary individual. One of the strongest characters I've ever met in my life. It's great fun. Good, still a great pal to this day.
Hello, mate. Why is it that team principals have their favourite drivers? I mean, you got Ron Dennis was looking after Senna, preferred him. Mick Hakkinen as well, we preferred him. Frank Williams as well, he preferred Mansell than anybody else. Why is that? How do you feel about that?
Well, Ron's a great friend of mine, and I spent a lot of time with Ron. We sort of go on holiday together. We were on holiday only 2 weeks ago together. I'll have to ask him, because I think he would say he treated Prost exactly the same way as he treated Senna, and just Senna had the upper hand. But you're right. There's some affinity to certain drivers. You just like their spirit. You get on well with them. You don't necessarily always agree with them. And I tell you what, I've had some... tell you a little story about Jacques Villeneuve. When I came to the BAR team, in the 555 team, Jacques was in the car. Now, you remember, this team had scored no points. He was at the back of the grid. It was disaster. But he was, with his manager, Craig Pollock, they were effectively running the team. So when I came on board, I was the real enemy. And I then recruited Jenson as well. And Jacques was not very happy about the whole situation. And he was always fighting me and always sort of saying, no, I'm not going to do this. He'd never turn up at press functions. So eventually, long story, we engineered a situation whereby in Japan, we turned around and said, you're out the car. And we put Takuma Sato in the car. It was a fairly contentious period, and Jacques was extremely upset and didn't speak to me, and he blanked me for years afterwards. But one day in Abu Dhabi, he called me across and he saw me in the Grand Prix in the garage, pit lane or something, and he said, look, I'd like to have a chat with you. And I saw him only the other day at Goodwood. He was down at Goodwood at the revival meeting the other day, and he said to me, you know, I look back at why I didn't listen to you in those days, why I didn't sort of take your advice. I just do not understand. I made such a cock-up of my career in those days. And, you know, so often young drivers, and Jenson was the same for a period of time, and, you know, we become great friends afterwards as they sort of quietly realize that sort of, you know, you're not always the enemy, the team principal. The team principal is trying to get the best results for the team, and that normally means getting the best results out of the driver as well. I don't know if you remember, I should have that video sometime. I just thought about it today, between Colin McRae and Carlos Sainz. Two drivers in the same team and fighting for the World Championship, just as you're going to see McLaren at the end of this year. And the last day of Spain, one more rally to go. Lombard RAC rally, and Carlos is leading by half a minute from Colin, and I said to them, right, we're going to stop here, this is the end of it. Tomorrow you just cruise round, we've got an easy win on our hands, we take the manufacturer's title, we go to the final round. And Colin decided he wasn't going to have anything of it. He decided he was not going to what happened behind the scenes, which I didn't realize till afterwards. Carlos basically said to him, as they got at the first stage and they stood around, he said, I didn't need team instructions to beat you, I could have beat you anyway. And, and Colin rose to the occasion, said, well, I'll just bloody well show you then. And then, of course, we had that famous scene in Lorette de Mar at the end of the event. They said, Colin, you're going to check in late, you agreed to finish second, and that was it. And you know what, sometimes the team principal has a tough job, because you've got to be firm with the drivers. And I've had a conversation today about a situation where I think the drivers are running the show, and that's just, you can't have that. The drivers are, you know, I don't like to put it, don't misunderstand me when I say they are employees of the team. They work for the team, they're there to deliver results for the team, and you have to have authority over them. You have to say, you know, I'm in charge, I'm going to run it, this is how we're going to do things, and just get on with it. And as soon as they sniff weakness, then it's just anarchy, and it just takes over, and you must never let that happen.
David, a question myself, going back to your own driving. Haven't I watched you racing in the Goodwood Revival?
Yes.
And don't I remember a TV chef put you on the grass, I think, off the start line? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that very well, actually.
Who was it? Was the TV chef? Do you remember?
Yeah, which one it was, actually. But no, what happened, a pal of mine said to me, he said, we're going to enter the, I think, St. Mary's race or whatever it was.
Trophy, yeah.
St. Mary's Trophy, where you have the Saturday race and the Sunday race, and you each drive for half an hour or something like that. And he said, right, the owners of the car drive on the Sunday. He said, that's me. And he said, and the professionals, that's you. You're driving with the other guys on the Saturday. I said, what do you mean? I've got all these race drivers all around me, and you're going to put me in with them. So I looked at the grid, and I'm surrounded by people I employ. And so I had to go to them, and I said, guys, this is, you know, just be careful here. I'm just in the middle of the pack here. And anyway, the guy in front of me didn't start very well, and my mate who owns the car is on top of the grandstand, on top of the garage, just looking down with my wife, looking at the thing. And I said, I've got to avoid the guy in front. I went through all the geraniums or whatever those plants were on the left-hand side. Charles's plants going all over the roof of the car.
Yeah, I was on top of the pit garage watching that as well, actually, yeah. I remember, I think it's James Martin, is that
it would have been James, yeah. He's
James.
in a Mini in front of me.
Yes, he put you on the grass, I watched
it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Dick Bennett's here, team. We've got a question for you.
Hi, David. You've been a team principal in F1. Now that McLarens have won the manufacturers, if you were Zach Brown, what would you do with Lando and Oscar?
I think I'd sit down with them and say, look, guys, you know, at the end of the day, if you're going to crash into each other all the time, you know, the likelihood is that Verstappen might win this championship, so let's be sensible about this. You know, it'll go swings and roundabouts, different events. You're not going to, you know, one of you will have an advantage one day, one the next, but just remember that sort of, you know, if you decide to take each other off, the likelihood is neither of you are going to win this championship. So I'm not going to give you team orders. I'm not going to tell you, you know, what's going to happen. You will be treated absolutely equally, but just think about it to yourself and try and be sensible about things. I don't think you can be prescriptive about it. I don't think you should be. Now he's got the manufacturer's title in his bag. You know, he doesn't really mind, but it'll be negative towards McLaren. It'll be negative towards the drivers if he allows it to become you know, too much banging and shoving. He's got to be a bit careful there. But I know. Funny enough, I spoke to Zach just straight after the race, actually. I sort of sent him a text, and he called up, and he's they're well on top of that. I think they'll. I think we're in for an interesting. Was it 5 races left? So let's wait and see.
Hamir, do you want to take a question over from this side here? Somebody with their hand up.
I have a related question. When you mentioned earlier about getting the best drivers for the rally team, are there any unique qualities or something you're particularly looking for in a rally driver?
Well, I think, you know, anyone who's got a long enough memory will remember the Avon Tour of Britain, which was rally drivers pitched against race drivers in what were production cars, or not. They weren't clearly production cars. There was a range of cars there, but Group N or whatever they were called in those days. And it was interesting how the rally drivers could adapt to anything very quickly and were very, very flexible. And the race drivers very rarely beat them because, you know, the differences on the racetracks were so small, where the differences on the rally stages were colossal. But it's experience in rallying, and you can't get away from the amount of experience, just years and years and years of just building up on that. And it's some of the guys, and it's surprising to me that so many of the youngsters are doing so well now, because, you know, it's what the people don't realize is they spend hours on the videos. They talk about practicing. You go through the stages. We used to spend 3 weeks practicing. And we go over and over and over the stages at night time and damn near full speed as well. Nowadays, they're only allowed to go through twice at relatively slow speed. But they've got the videos of those stages, and they sit in their bedrooms every night, and they go through it and through it and through it, and they memorize the roads. And that's why you can never get them to do any PR activities during the event. You can't get them to come to dinner with sponsors because they're sitting in their bedroom watching these damn videos. And so they do have an extraordinary innate talent, the best rally drivers. It's just some extraordinary gift they have.
And how did Rovanpera become so successful so young? Because you think rally drivers need that maturity, they need a bit of development, but he was just so quick from such a young age.
I agree. No, he's just come on stream very, very quickly, and he's defied that my theory, actually.
Yeah, he sort of broke the model, hasn't he? Any other questions? Got another one here. I'll walk down this side. Oh, Ivor's got one here. Ivor used to co-drive me when we were rallying.
He survived.
I did survive, even down at Epping, rolling down the hill there. Quick one, an amazing CV, fantastic, good to hear about it. Going back to rallying, your roots, I love rallying, have done for years, but WRC1 struggles to get beyond 10 entries. Some of the rallies, you only have 5 finishers. WRC2 and some of the biggest rounds have 35 to 40 entries. How do you see rallying going, and is it going to change much in the future? Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, I was asked to head up a small working group about more than 18 months ago, nearly 2 years ago now, when exactly that question was asked, and this was in the World Council, when we said, this is getting a bit ridiculous. We've got hardly any entries, and the WRC2, the second category, is so strong. What are we going to do? So I led a small team that wrote a set of regulations, which I dug out the file only about 2 weeks ago. And we shared this. And the regulations were written in February last year, so 18 months ago. Handed in. There you go. And it was approved by the World Council at the time. That's the direction to take. And still today, they haven't been published. There was a meeting yesterday, I'm told, at the FIA to discuss why these haven't happened, and it's a very simple set of regulations. And the principle of it, you start with what you're trying to achieve, and the principle was we should get a set of regulations that would allow anyone in this room to buy a car that was equal performance to the factory cars and it was affordable, that you could get into the RAC rally or whatever it was, just as we would have done with the Ford Escort, 50 years ago, 40 years ago. And I think we've got the right regulations to do that. And I hope that in the next few months, they will be published and we'll get on with it. They've been delayed a year. They were supposed to be in 2027. It'll have to be 2028 now, because it takes about 18 months to get everything up and running and get it properly done. And I think the cars will be similar performance to WRC2 cars. They'll be... The reason you can't carry on with WRC2, by the way, is because the manufacturers aren't making those cars anymore. The homologations will run out and nobody's making those cars. So you must go to a space frame, which you'll be surprised how cheap those will be if we do them in big production volumes, and they won't cost a lot of money. And all that the manufacturer will do is homologate the bodywork. So each manufacturer can come along to the FIA and say, I'd like some bodywork on, and you have fixed points on the space frame. Everyone uses the same fixed points. You just change the bodywork over, and the gearbox will be standard. All the rest of it will be relatively standard. And, we could actually have very good rallying again.
10 years into the future, artificial intelligence will probably be so good that it could design the perfect race car for any set of regulations, in which case every racing series might as well be a one-make series. Just wondering how your company utilises artificial intelligence.
Well, funny you should say that. My youngest son's girlfriend, or fiancée now, is a bit of an expert in this area. So I asked her to come and talk to the company about this about 6 months ago. And after the discussion, one of the young girls in the company, who's one of the lawyers in the company, she said, I'd like to take on this as a challenge. And she presented to the management yesterday about how she thinks we should roll this out within the company and how we should manage it. And it will have quite a significant effect on everything we do, but I think it'll just make us more efficient and faster to do things. I'd like to think that we could, I think it's beholden on the organisers of championships and the governing bodies to look at regulations that reward innovation as well and reward new technologies. And for instance, the ADAC announced on Saturday a new championship for the DTM in Germany, which has always been a little bit sort of on the boundaries of things. And they've got a new regulations which will be 2030, where it's four-wheel drive, electric drive, a standard platform, but with any motor system you want. So you could run batteries. It's 30-minute races. You could run a battery. You could run a hydrogen fuel cell. You could run a range extender. All sorts of ideas they're looking at for that. So I think people are starting to realise now that we need to bring innovation back into sport, and that will be. I think that's going to be the mark of the next few years.
Okay, so David had a sore throat beginning this talk, so it can't have got any better over the last hour and a half. So one final question here from the second row.
Hi, Dave. We've known you for a long time, rallying with Steve Bannister. There's two quotes from you, or one quote that we always think of when we think of you, and it's...
I'm worried by this now. I'm really worried by this.
Barry Hinchcliffe asked you, I believe you've damaged a bank, and you said... We haven't damaged it, we've destroyed it.
I think that was the car, not the bank, actually.
Well, that as well. Just for anybody who's here, I did a tour of the factory about a month ago with Malton Motor Club, and we had the inevitable Tomo in charge, yes, who engaged with 3 hours of absolutely amazing stuff. We didn't take pictures in the sand racing shed. We're warned off. But if anybody has the chance to go and see your outfit, it's just amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
And they feed you very well as well.
You're very welcome. We do tours quite regularly. And in fact, Izzy, who's at the back of the room tonight, Izzy organises the tours. So if you want to organise a motor club tour to Prodrive, you collar Izzy at the end of the evening.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Another big hand for David Richards, please.
Thank you.